And I'd like to hand this over to our Southwest Region Chair, Tina Thompson.
Thank you, Rachel. So once again, thank you for joining us today. And this is going to be a little different than our normal sharing session, but it's very exciting because I feel like this is something that we could really use to be in tune with what our government affairs team is doing for us. And this will help us, take home to our states the message of how valuable NACD is to us. So I'm going to introduce, we have Kim LaFleur. Thank you for joining us, our president, Kim LaFleur. And then we have Jeremy Peters, our CEO, and then Chris Young, who is Government Affairs Director. So thank you for arranging for this, and we're happy to hear from you. And who wants to start first? Kim or?
Thank you, Tina, and good morning and good afternoon. It's a pleasure to be here today to listen to the interests and the needs of your region. Certainly well represented at the national level in the boardroom, but really looking forward to hearing some of the conversation from the attendees here today about the specific needs of the Southwest and how NACD can continue to provide support and assistance to your region.
Yeah, and I might go next. Hello, everybody. I'm Jeremy Peters, NACD's Chief Executive Officer. Just looking at the participant list, it looks like a lot of familiar names, familiar faces, but also some new folks that I've not had the opportunity to meet before. So it's nice to meet you virtually and to be able to spend some time talking about the work that we do at the national level, and to also spend some time with the Southwest region and hearing your specific needs. One of the things that I think is the hallmark of our organization is locally led conservation. It's one of the things that distinguishes NACD from any other organization nationally that's doing work on conservation, on agriculture and ranching in the U.S. The work that we do is based upon the locally identified needs and priorities of our members, and those, of course, translate into national level action in the areas where we have clear direction, clear leadership from our board of directors on those issues. And that's it's one of the things that I think is the hallmark of NACD. It's one of the things that's unique to the conservation district network all across the U.S. That we have those experiences that are based in the real experiences that you're bringing forward, and that we can translate into policy action. We do that through a number of methods. One of the things that we're right in the middle of this year is our policy resolution process. And for those that have participated in that process before, the benefits that brings forward to the national level, where we get policy resolutions that come from every state and territory in the country, that can be included as part of NACD's policy book. And those policy positions then translate into federal level advocacy that can translate into resources, into programs, into actions that can be impactful back in the local communities where these resolutions originated. So, we've got a very robust process in place for our policy resolutions. I would encourage everyone on the call, if you've not already submitted resolutions to your state association, those windows are still open if your state has not yet met, and to bring those resolutions forward to NACD so that we can consider them at our board of directors meeting coming up in February. Really looking forward to being in Salt Lake City in February for the annual convention. And I know many of the folks on the Zoom today are planning on being there. For those that maybe have not made travel plans, if you've never been to an NACD annual meeting before, this would be an excellent opportunity to attend an annual meeting in the Southwest region, and we look forward to welcoming you. But just wanted to offer a few comments just to get things started this morning. I know we'll get to more things in depth as we get further into the webinar. But appreciate the invitation to participate today. And Rachel, I'll turn things back over to you.
Thanks, Jeremy. And Chris, I just wanted to give you a moment if you had anything that you wanted to add.
Yeah, thanks, Rachel. Chris Young, I'm the Director of Government Affairs at NACD. Folks are likely more familiar with a member of my team, Libby Walrow. She's NACD's Natural Resource Policy Specialist. And I think she's been more involved in working with folks out west and folks specifically in your region on a lot of public land-centric issues. There's been a lot that's happened on the national level that really affects, this region in particular, that public lands rule. There are a lot of issues around water quantity and quality, a lot of wildlife management issues that are really specific to your states that just have a really high percentage of public lands. And yeah, I think we just really see this as an opportunity to hear from you. Like Kim and Jeremy said, we're here to better understand the needs that y'all have in the region and to better support you. So looking forward to hearing from y'all.
Thanks, Chris. And yeah, I debated, should I make this, should I ask folks to have more of a formal presentation, or should I just allow us all to have some organic conversation? And I decided on the latter because, especially if you attend annual meeting and summer meeting and our region meetings, you get a lot of great content about what NACD is up to and what we provide in a formal sense, but we don't usually get a chance to have a conversation with NACD leadership, especially. So I thought this would be a great opportunity just to chat about any questions you have or ideas or issues that you're seeing within your state or your district or the region as a whole, and just have an audience with the leadership that we have this opportunity for. So please don't clam up on me for having faith that you guys are going to be talkative this morning. So you're free to jump off mute if that's easier. If you're more comfortable, feel free to put a question or a comment into the chat and I can read it off for the group. So either way is great. There is no such thing as a stupid question, and it doesn't even have to be a question. It can be a comment or an idea or anything like that. So please, everybody, feel free to jump off mute or put your questions in the chat.
Well, I could start, break the ice here.
Thanks, Tina.
So this is for Connor. I mean, this is a conversation I've been having on email with Connor, and this question's more for Chris probably, is so House Bill 7525, where it's dealing with special districts. Could you, that was a concern that was brought up in our last meeting, in our region meeting. And I found out from Connor that you guys have been on top of it, but could you explain it more and why it's so important? And how are we, the NRCDs, considered special districts, or is it going beyond the NRCDs?
Yeah, thanks, Tina. So that is an effort that we've been tracking. And yeah, conservation districts are considered special districts. And for folks who aren't familiar, I think a lot of folks on here likely are, but that legislation really came about after COVID relief bills provided a lot of federal funding to support state and local governments. After those bills were passed, a lot of special districts, and there are many, many different kinds of special districts, as folks are probably aware. And really, they don't have, I don't think most of them aren't as organized or, have the kind of federal relationships and support that conservation districts do. But this bill, it's actually kind of simple. All it really does is it makes special districts of all kinds, so fire districts, irrigation districts, any kind of special district. In any subsequent federal funding legislation, it considers them local units of government. So in a lot of cases, that would allow them to access federal funding for new, any future grant opportunities. It also requires federal agencies to consider special districts when looking to administer new grant opportunities. I think I know Colorado and some other states reached out and we're concerned that this might increase competition for federal funding. That conservation districts have historically been involved with. We've since been working with the Special Districts Association that is, leading this effort to try to, just to try to suss out, what is the likelihood that there is going to be, increased competition for federal grants. I think in a lot of cases, we have such a great and long-standing relationship with USDA and NRCS specifically that, there really isn't a lot of potential for increased competition there. But there may be in other grant programs, Fish and Wildlife, in some cases BLM. But that's something we're continuing to track. NACD does not support that bill, but we're working with the sponsors to try to alleviate some of those, competition related concerns. But certainly welcome any thoughts that folks on here have or any suggestions.
Thank you. I think it was somebody from maybe Colorado that brought that up in our meeting. So I don't know if they want to ask anything.
Yeah, sorry, it was Abby, and she's at an EPA meeting presenting right now. So with the meeting time change, she couldn't make both of them. So she asked me to jump in. I think Chris explained that pretty well. I think our state's concern is not just the competition, but the relevancy piece. So even just this week, a couple districts are talking with our kind of more local state special district association on changing our statute without talking with our association. So, I just wanted to make sure that nationally we create a positive relationship working with that National Special District Coalition, I think was Abby's biggest concern on that. So, we don't have kind of a Colorado struggling a little bit on trying to create and repair some relationships here with our local state special district association. So we just don't want that to be repeated nationally or in other areas. And I know Wyoming and Utah have similar organizations forming and growing too. So thanks, Chris.
Yeah, thanks, Nikki. We do have I have a close relationship with my counterpart at that the National Special Districts Association. And I agree. I think I think it's hard to predict just, if this bill passes in the next Congress, how that's going to change kind of the flow of some of this, existing federal funding and future federal funding opportunities. So yeah, I agree. Just, staying and working with on the national and the state levels is important. So we'd love to keep in touch with you too on how those conversations are progressing, but appreciate those thoughts.
I guess a follow-up question for anyone, but for Tina or Nikki specifically on this topic. How do you see the piece of legislation and kind of the broader movement with the Special District Association? How do you see that playing out with the conservation districts in your region?
Well, does it have the potential of making it more clear with them that we are someone that they could partner with or send funding to? Does it make it any more provide clarification on that, where there's some might be reluctant to go to the special districts?
It does encourage that, for all special districts. So not just conservation districts, but all special districts. So in a sense, yes, but it's for everybody.
Yeah, I think it's a new thing, so it's a hard kind of navigate and see where to go with it. I think what would be helpful is, well, I'm not sure if it will be helpful because every state is set up differently. So our statute, specifically says our districts are political subdivisions of the state, but yet they have to do a budget and an election similar to what is a special district classified in a different statute in Colorado. So I think that's probably the hard point, and maybe that is where Colorado is different. But as the state associations are forming in Washington and Wyoming and that kind of stuff, I wouldn't be surprised to see more statutes come out of there clarifying their special districts or, doing something separately like that. So I think what might be helpful is for state associations that are looking for how to navigate that. My guess is going to be is that they're probably going to come to NACD and say like, hey, this other group is forming. What should our relationship look like going forward? Should we, be at the forefront of creating an MOU and saying like, okay, these are our swim lanes and these are your swim lanes. What does that look like? And can you provide some guidance on that? Right now, our districts, some of them pay memberships to both associations. They get one thing, they get the natural resource policy stuff, which is great and strong through the state association and NACD, but they get the, day-to-day stuff like the budgets and the audits and the elections from the SDA group and the special district group. So they're confused on where to go and who to go for what, and having to pay dues to two different groups. So I think that's where I was just wanting to see how we can help them be proactive and help explain that to districts. So when they try to navigate those waters in these states as they're forming, they have a kind of a better system set up.
Yeah, that's helpful to know. And one thing that we may want to think about as an outcome from this discussion is even how we can start to form a more cohesive narrative around this, because I think you're correct. This is it's a new opportunity. It could present some challenges, but I think probably more opportunities than challenges. But how we message that back to the broader membership, not only for the Southwest region, but for nationally, I think it's going to be important. So would invite your all's thoughts on, how we could craft that narrative.
Yeah, Nikki, I think that's a really good question. And maybe it's worth us finding time to sit down sometime in the next couple weeks. This hasn't passed yet, but I do think, talking through some of those questions before it potentially would be a good idea. And I think my initial reaction would be, having those relationships and being a part of those conversations would be beneficial. For at least understanding where, some of those other special districts are coming from and some of the new opportunities they're going to be looking for. So we'd be really happy to sit down with you and talk more about that. And hopefully we can figure out, some guidance that makes sense on the national level.
No, that sounds great. Thanks.
Thank you. I know that was something that has been on people's minds. I'm glad that we got to have some discussion about that. Does anybody else have anything that they'd like to add to that issue, or a separate, something separate that they'd like to bring up, or a question that they would like to ask? Go ahead, Nikki.
Sorry.
Go for it.
I was just kind of looking at the list, and I'm sorry, I don't know everyone either, but looking at the Colorado list, it's a lot of new district folks who might not understand the policy process or the good work you guys do for NACD at policy. I know like a whole explanation might not be necessary, but if you had like a couple cliff notes to help them guide them a little bit, might help them trigger some questions too.
Yeah, I'm happy to talk a little bit about that. So, every year, we solicit new resolutions, which are really just new policies from, like every state association, and NACD subcommittees and standing committees have the opportunity to introduce new policy that is considered by our full board of directors at our annual meeting. So, we always talk about how our policy book is, just comprised of all policies that, came from, individual states and local districts, and that's true. Um, so the deadline for, state associations to submit new policies, that, are considered to be, inserted into our policy book is, about a month away. I'm happy. I think we had, Jeremy mentioned we had sent out that solicitation, um, a couple months ago, but we're happy to just kind of re-up that for folks, and certainly welcome, if folks have, resolutions that they're currently considering at the state level, or just have, ideas. We're really happy to sit down and talk through those. Um, Even if, you all were just interested in, and we've done this with other folks before too, in sitting down with our government affairs team to talk through, some, uh, policy, interests or concerns that you have at the state or region level. We're happy to kind of talk through, what currently exists in our policy book, and where, we could potentially build, in that area. So, um, yeah, certainly, uh, happy to talk about some of that today if folks have ideas. But we can also, find time in the coming weeks to sit down and talk if folks are interested.
One policy that, well, actually Gary Blair in Boston had mentioned that we could use a policy on land conversion. And for us, solar is a big issue, is becoming a big issue. And so the Southwest region, we were actually contemplating coming up with something for the South, to present from the Southwest region. But then I talked to Connor Simons, is it?
Yeah,
And
that's right.
he says Virginia is actually working on something for that, and he shared what they had, which I liked. I liked what they had for solar on that. But that's kind of some good things to know, you know, who else is working on stuff and whether we, can collaborate or anything like that.
Yeah, glad that was actually, yeah, Virginia. We worked with Scott on, a land conversion policy that was, specific to solar. I do think that's what he came up with, and we worked with him on that. What he came up with was great. Really supports, you all, I think, have a really big, interest in that. We've also submitted comments in the past couple years. To BLM on some of their solar development, rules that are, consistent with that policy, and just consistent, I think, with, what a lot of your states push for, at the, state and local level for, supporting the multiple use mandate. I know that relatively new public lands rule that BLM is working, um, to administer. That's something that, this group I know in particular is pretty concerned about. It's going to be really interesting to, track. Uh, President-elect Trump just, nominated a new, lead for the Department of the Interior. I think there's going to be, there are going to be a lot of big changes to how, that agency and sub-agencies like the BLM, now work to, in a lot of cases, reverse policies like those. but it is going to take time. There are going to be more rulemakings that we would really want to work with you all on to make sure it reflects, the needs in your states. So that's just an upcoming issue that I know that we're really going to want to coordinate with you all on.
Thank you.
It looks like Daniel has a question about where to find that full policy book.
So one thing I'll do, just because I'm not positive that I have most folks' emails on here, but I'll send Rachel a, a few of the things that we talked about today, and she can make sure that this group gets all of that. But I'll send that full policy book. And then, like I said, very happy to find time to sit down and talk through any policies that you all are considering.
Great,
I have a
thanks.
question.
Yeah, Jenny, go for it.
So hi, everybody. My name is Jenny and I'm work for the Sierra Soil and Water Conservation District. We're down near Truth or Consequences, New Mexico. So we're kind of very southwest New Mexico. Would you guys, I know that one thing in New Mexico that's happening is we've had quite a bit of like new employees come on. We're working on really, getting all the districts to build capacity. Our state association, along with some other advocates, went last year and actually got legislative funding put in place to increase everybody's allocation to $70,000 a year. That unfortunately was a one-time thing, but we're going to go back this year and try to get that money to be reoccurring so that we have, every district has at least the ability to hire an employee. So my question is, I don't know, if NACD would consider, or maybe you guys already have resources that would help employees on how to, look at these policies, how to draft comments, what to look for. I don't know if there would be an opportunity to maybe have a session on that, maybe perhaps provide some examples. We just seem to have in New Mexico, we have some people that have been there for a long time. All those people are fixing to retire. And there's a bunch of us newbies who are kind of jumping into it and maybe aren't quite as versed on the policy side of things. So I don't know if you guys already have something in place or if maybe that's something that you would consider doing a little session about that. And I got to meet Rachel at our state association meeting. So thanks for coming down to that. But that's just a quick question I had for you guys.
Yeah, appreciate that, Jenny. I might take that one first with the initial response. I think one of the things that is, again, going back to our kind of core principles, locally led being one of the core principles that just makes the conservation district so different and really distinguishes our work both at the local, state, and the national level. The grassroots advocacy piece is so critically important in that because the conservation districts aren't just speaking as individuals. You represent your communities, you're representative government at the local level. So you're speaking on behalf of the communities that you represent. And that's a really powerful statement. That's a powerful place to reside. And that also builds a lot of credibility, whether you're lobbying in Santa Fe or lobbying in Washington, D.C. And, you're speaking on behalf of many other people. We do have some trainings available on grassroots advocacy that are on the NACD website. We can direct you to some of those resources. Specifically thinking about, the capacity challenges, that's something that we hear from every corner of the country, just in terms of staffing and the need for increased staffing capacity. That's one of the things that we identified in the origins of our technical assistance grant program. And that program, is continuing. We recently closed for applications on that program, are going through the process of getting those applications ranked and prioritized for looking at awards. We know that it doesn't meet the need that exists, but it does contribute to the broader capacity challenges and the workforce locally. So that's something that we're proud to be able to continue, and I see that continuing into the future. Around the specific challenges that you expressed around looking at rulemakings, looking at notice and comment periods and so forth. That's also I don't think we've ever done a training in that space, but if that's something that's of interest, we could certainly look at that. I think one thing that always helps us with informing NACD's comments, we put those to our subcommittees in the areas where the subcommittees have an interest, and the public lands subcommittee has been very active historically in terms of helping to respond and to help craft those comments. So there are opportunities for engagement around federal rulemakings that if you've not engaged in those previously, that's something that I think we would invite folks. The subcommittees, the way that President LaFleur has designed those is for participation from our board of directors, but also participation from non-board members. And so that presents opportunities for us to get more people engaged and to get additional perspectives engaged in activities like helping to provide comment on federal rulemaking. So I think there's a lot in that space that we could offer, but I really appreciate you flagging that for us today. Kim or Chris, y'all may also have responses that you'd like to provide, but I at least wanted to take the first crack at the bat on that one.
Yeah, I think on any federal rulemakings, we'd really appreciate, and we've worked, Nevada comes to mind. We've worked a lot with Jake on some federal comments to federal rulemakings that have come from BLM and some other agencies. So we worked, in a couple cases really closely with him he worked, through with other entities in his state to submit comments. But we also work to incorporate, a lot of those points into our federal comments. So I think in any case where you all, come across a federal rulemaking that you'd be interested in providing input on, reach out to our team. Reach out. I think Rachel, is the first, appropriate point of contact. But then it's always super helpful for us, just to understand, who is interested, who would be impacted by it. And then, we can work with those regions and states to make sure, that we, at least consider their input. In some cases, states have different priorities, and different kinds of input they'd like to be included in there. But please reach out to Rachel so she can connect with our team in that case.
Thank you.
Yeah, and to that point, don't ever feel like, I don't know if Rachel is the right person for this. I don't know if I should bug her with this. I am your first point of contact. And even if it's not something that I can address directly, I will make sure that I get you to the person that can. So don't ever feel like, oh, I don't know if that's, what she does or if she can help me with that. Don't ever hesitate to get in touch with me, and I'll help you get to the right place. All right, does anybody else have other comments or questions? Christy.
Yeah, hey, and I'm not sure if other states handle it the same, but just a question on NACD's, influence or possible influence on. So we have the continuing resolutions. Our government won't pass their budget. But one of the concerns we have here, and I know a lot of states have these partner positions that are funded or partially funded by NRCS, or we have some with BLM. And I guess I'm just wondering where I've talked to our own congressional delegation, but so if the government shuts down, government employees are protected, right, with their salaries either during or after. But at least in Utah, we've been told that our partner employees are not. So NRCS or whoever will not pay for that time that the government is shut down for those employees. I don't know. Anyway, so I'm just wondering if other states, if your state is handling it the same, or what kind of influence we can have on a national level to fix that issue, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think our, you know, on a very macro level, you know, we're consistently working with federal appropriators to pass those bills on time. I think it's been really frustrating for, you know, everyone over the past many years that they have had to rely on passing those temporary continuing resolutions to fund the government. And there is always a, you know, the threat of those shutdowns happening if they're not able to pass another funding patch or full bills by those deadlines. So that's something we've been pretty vocal about in our, you know, in working with Congress and other leaders. And on the, you know, agency level, they, you know, of course, it's not something that really we or the agencies themselves can control. But we also, you know, work really closely with, you know, NRCS, other agency leadership to understand what's going to happen in the event of a federal shutdown. You know, in some cases they have, you know, a decent amount of flexibility with you know, existing funding, and in some cases they really don't, and they you know, essentially can't operate. So I think just getting that information you know, out there and having you know, districts understand, you know, when those deadlines are coming up and exactly what the consequences would be. And I think at the, you know, keeping in touch with those federal offices at the state and local level is also really important. Just to help prepare. Hopefully we don't have another shutdown, but there's always the possibility, so to be prepared for it. So it's not the I don't think that's the greatest answer in the world, but that's what we're a couple points on that. I'm not sure if Jeremy has any other thoughts.
Yeah, I think a couple. One, you know, based on everything that we're currently hearing and in conversations with folks on the Hill, with stakeholders, you know, I think the conventional wisdom right now is that we're looking at an extension of the current CR through March. That's the current discussion. Now that could change tomorrow, but that's, you know, at least as of this week, that's, you know, the outlook is that, you know, there will be another continuing resolution, and you know, that will get us further down the road. I agree with Chris. It's not ideal to have to manage through CR after CR, because that's just not a good way to run a railroad. But you know, that's just the pattern that we've been in the last several funding cycles. I know from previous discussions with NRCS, and again, this is all subject to change, but their previous posture on potential government shutdowns because of their Inflation Reduction Act authorities and because of the No Year funding authorities under their Technical Assistance Fund, that they would be business as usual, that NRCF at least would still be operational even in the event of a shutdown. Now, again, that can change. They can also get direction from OMB or from other areas of the federal government that they have to close. But the last time that we went through that exercise, that was the position that NRCS was taking, was that they would still be operational because of the authorities that they have in place right now. So that's something, if you know, we do get to a point where we would be looking at another government shutdown, of course, NACD will communicate as proactively as we can. You know, the point about the partnership employees and the ability to make them whole, you know, that's also something that we can raise to NRCS to make sure that they're aware that that's a need that exists, that's real, and that we want to make sure that there's equity in terms of how partnership employees are treated with alongside of their federal counterparts.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that information.
Yeah. Does that answer anything else, Christy, that you would have in follow up on that?
Yeah, I think that at least gives me some. Every time the rumor comes around, I have employees start emailing me, what am I gonna do?
Naturally.
Goes into panic mode, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, but I think that gives me some good information to at least share with them. So I appreciate it.
Thank you. What about anybody else? Do we have any other? This has been a great discussion so far. I'm glad people have definitely come prepared with some things that are impacting our regions. This has been great. Does anybody else have any questions or comments or something they'd like to share?
You know, at the Alaska meeting, it was brought up that it's a new federal mandate that the NRCS has to have has to do competitive bids for contracts now. What's happened with that? I mean, one our state conservationist said that was an issue, or brought it up like it's an issue, but then another NRCS employee said, well, it's just a matter of how you check the boxes on your forms. So have you heard anything more about that and how it's going to affect the NRCDs and our, our contracts with NRCS?
Yeah, thanks for raising that, Tina. Our understanding on that topic, and we've had updates as recently as this week with the chief and associate chief. That policy is still being finalized, and they're looking at different thresholds for agreements that would be subject to competition requirements. The secretary will have some discretion on those thresholds and other exemptions. We've been making the case that the agreements with districts are unique agreements and need to be set aside as exempt for many reasons, not the least of which being the historical precedent that the districts are co-located, that we're local government. These are government to government agreements, and that we also in terms of the services that are being provided, that those are unique services that the districts are uniquely situated to provide. So we're making a strong case there. But we still have to continue to advocate, and that's something that is absolutely is on our radar that we're continuing to work on. I think the other thing that is important is if you're not already communicating with your state conservationist on this topic, do so. The state conservationists are critical in those decision points, and also in terms of helping to provide guidance in terms of how to structure agreements such that if there were any question about whether or not they would be subject to competition clauses, you can hopefully work ahead to address those issues. So I would say your relationship with your state con is always important, but incredibly important in these conversations as well.
Thank you. Well, then I see Christy Davis. She commented that it's how you phrase the language, including a reason the districts are uniquely qualified to run the particular agreement. So, again, states how important your state con is on this.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so we have about 10 minutes left. If anybody has anything else that they would like to bring up to the group, now is the time. We've solved all the problems of the world. This is impressive. Well, I want to thank everybody for coming and joining us for this conversation. I think it's a great opportunity just to have, you know, some one-on-one time with our leadership and really understand, you know, not only what the region is facing, but also all of the support that NACD can provide to us as we're facing these different challenges and issues. And of course, if something comes up, you know, it happens to me on occasion. As soon as I log off, I'm like, darn it, I should have brought that up. Feel free to email me and I will pass it along and still continue that conversation. This has been recorded, and so if you want to go back and listen to something or share with somebody that wasn't able to make it, feel free. I will send out a link to that recording to everybody that registered, and I'll also put it on the Southwest page of the NACD website. But I hope everybody has a great rest of your day, and I will turn it over to Tina for any closing comments.
Well, thank you very much. I think this was very beneficial. I think we could use more of this. You know, I think a lot of people don't realize, including myself till recently, you know, how we can communicate with the government advocacy team. It was real helpful to be able to talk to you guys to find out that you're already working on, you already have a policy for the land conversion going. And then I just want to reiterate to the question about getting help from NACD on presenting resolutions. I mean, the last few meetings I've been to, it's been very well iterated that if you have a policy that you want to present, that you definitely should contact NACD and get help from the government affairs team to present it properly. And I know Arizona in the past has not done that and has had problems because of that. So that's very good information going forth. If knowing that you need to contact NACD's team, and they should definitely be willing to help you with getting a proper, having it written right so it doesn't get kicked out on technicalities and stuff like that. So thank you again. I think this was great, and I'm glad you recorded it and it's going to be on the website.
Yeah,
And
thank you guys again. I do want to say, so I actually sit on the NGLI committee, and we get very, very few applicants to that program from the Southwest region. So I'm not sure why, if we're not doing a good job getting the word out, but that's another opportunity for like those newer board members who might be interested to get involved and really get some good training and some good help. So make sure you guys, you know, try to tell your board members, especially if you have new ones, to jump in and try to maybe get an application in next year. So
I think we have an application in this year from Arizona.
okay.
Yeah.
I hope so.
Mm-hmm.
No, I appreciate that plug, Jenny, and you know, the Southwest region has had two really good participants in the program, and we look forward to future participants from the Southwest region. And for those who may not be familiar, that's the Next Generation Leadership Program Institute, I should say. It's a program of our National Conservation Foundation, and look forward to our next and our future cohorts into that program.
Great. Well, thank you, everybody. I really appreciate you all logging on and being part of this discussion. And feel free to reach out to me if you have any other questions or comments.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Take care.
Thank you.
Have a good weekend.